This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the lockdown coverage week number 4 in the National Football League. Baltimore Ravens at home taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. AFC North family business of the highest order. This is one of those rivalries that right now is one of the hottest in the league and timeless. And I've said this before, said it last week when we saw Packers and Bears. It's one of 3 rivalries that you are guaranteed to get on national television at some point, Thursday, Monday, Sunday night. You're going to get it at some point. And we're going to get these same 2 teams, I believe Christmas Day, if I'm not mistaken, again. It may be on a Sunday night. It may be on a Thursday night when they meet again. I think it's on Christmas, but I'm not sure. But either way, it's on primetime television. And this game went exactly the way that I expected it to go. And if you've been watching the Ravens and Steelers closely this season, I don't think you were surprised by the outcome or the way that it was reached. This Ravens team has struggled to score all season long. And it's really going to be their undoing this season. The defense is good enough for them to win 10 games this year. The problem is, and with all the injuries that's starting to really take effect, they just don't have enough juice offensively. And here's another example of that. They scored 7 last week. They scored 9 this week. Even in their wins earlier in the season, as impressive as they were against bad teams, and they caused 5 turnovers in each of those games still, yet they only scored 20 and 24 respectively in those ball games. So this is a Ravens team that won't be able to score enough week in and week out against quality opponents to be able to win a lot of football games this season. And the Steelers still haven't hit that offensive stride quite yet. We're still waiting for that offensive outburst. I thought today was an opportunity to maybe make that happen. They had the Ravens on the ropes a few times in this game, let them off the hook, but at the end of the day, were able to make enough plays to keep the Ravens at bay. And so they get the win 26-9. We'll start quickly with the Steelers in this game. Offensively, you're still waiting for that explosion. It was nice to see L.B step up. 35 carries. They gave him the workload today and still found enough carries to work in the rookie James Conner out of Pitt. So they ran the football very effectively today, which is a surprise because, again, against the Ravens, you expect them to maybe give something up in the secondary, but not a ton of yards on the ground. But without Brandon Williams in the middle of that lineup, kind of changes the dynamics of that defense and how stout they're going to be up front. And so you go from a team that last week and the week previous and the week before that couldn't really run the football that effectively in the Steelers to a team this week that rushed it over 40 times for a nice piece of change in this football game. And so taking a lot of that pressure off of Ben Roethlisberger to have to sling it. And he didn't have the best of games. And for the second straight week, he misses a wide open Big Ten Martavis Bryant streaking down the field for what probably would have been a touchdown had he hit him in stride. This offense isn't complete unless Ben is hitting that deep ball. And in past years, Ben wouldn't have missed that deep ball last week. He wouldn't have missed that deep ball this week. Right now, I'm still waiting for the Steelers' offense to click. They haven't clicked yet. Ben isn't sharp. You saw Antonio Brown upset, visibly frustrated after Ben missed him on a second chance route where he essentially breaks off his route and runs up the field. And Ben had time to look his way. Ben kind of panicked on the play, rolled out, ended up throwing it away. Had he just looked to the other side of the field, he would have saw a wide open A.B. and may have been able to make a big play. Bottom line is this offense isn't where it needs to be for this team to maximize the amount of talent that they have on that side of the football. But yet they've been doing enough defensively, and that's the biggest change for this team here in 2017 with the Steelers is the fact that the defense is so much better. If they can stay healthy, they got a shot with T.J. Watt. You can't sit here and tell me, as we make our transition to the defensive side of football, you can't look me in my eyes and tell me that Ryan Shazier isn't one of the best linebackers in all of football. You can't look me in my eyes with a straight face and tell me he's not one of the best. I've been tooting this man's horn for the last 3 years, and I said if he can stay healthy, Ryan Shazier is by far and away one of the best linebackers in all of football, because you don't get that type of physicality and raw speed in that type of package with playmaking ability. You saw him be able to pick a pass off where he comes underneath the pass, turns, locates football at the last second and picks it off. The play to tip the football, how high did he get in the air on that play to tip it and allow Hilton to pick the football off? How high did he get in the air on that pass? I mean, ridiculous. This guy's an athletic freak, and this to me is one of the best defenses the Steelers have had in quite some time. And the one thing I can say is they're still lacking consistency getting to the quarterback. That one guy, maybe T.J. Watt morphs into that guy. Bud Dupree at times can be a force. The pocket does collapse with Tuitt and Cam Hayward and all those guys, but I don't feel like there's a dominant pass rush yet in Pittsburgh. But everywhere else, I feel like they've got all that they need. That Joe Hayden pickup at the end of preseason was a huge signing. I think it really completed this defense. And now with Artie Burns out there, with Sean Davis, your second-year man out of Maryland at safety, Mike Mitchell, all those guys that you're tuning in and out of that lineup in the secondary. I really like what the Steelers have defensively. The linebacker core is legit now. I think this is a Steelers team right now that defensively has confidence. And it's up to the offense to take what the Steelers are doing defensively and maximize what this team can be. This team hasn't hit their stride yet. Offensively, they still are light years away from where I think they need to be for them to be a Super Bowl contending football team. But defensively, if they can keep this up, this type of intensity, this type of play, and granted, it was the Baltimore Ravens. Take it for what it's worth. We know that the Ravens are one of the worst offensive teams in the league, so let's not go overboard. But the Steelers have been pretty solid all season long defensively. So this was a big showing on the road, a place you haven't won in quite some time. But like I said, we expected Baltimore to struggle scoring the football. We expected the Steelers to come out, have opportunities. And if they could just somehow turn down the turnovers and how that pass ended up being an interception and not down by contact, you got me. I don't know how that turned into an interception. If not for that play, I don't know if the Ravens even score in this football game. That's how dominant the Steelers defense was on the afternoon. And so really good showing by the Steelers on the road against their most hated nemesis in the Baltimore Ravens as they get the 26-9 victory. L.Bell, 35 carries in this game. Dominant performance by him out of the backfield. And it was something that they needed because, again, I don't think that passing game is clicking and at the point where they want it to be quite yet. And so to be able to lean on the run game, I thought that was huge for them in this particular ball game. You go to the Ravens, and it's the same story. I mean, we could basically repeat what we said the week prior and just change the week. Just change the team that they're playing against, but it's the same story. Lack of offensive firepower, lack of the ability to drive the football down the field, lack of your ability to scare anyone. Even though you got speed on the offensive side of football, no one's afraid of that speed. No one's afraid of your big play ability with Wallace and Perryman and those guys that can run. And so because of that, everybody's packing everything up, daring Joe Flacco to beat them. I actually thought that, and I told you I really like Alex Collins. I told you that already. Told you that 2 weeks ago when I first saw him in a Ravens uniform and didn't know he was there. I said, man, Alex Collins looks good. I want to see more. Well, he started this game and 9 carries, 82 yards. Granted, one of those carries was a 54-yarder. Still, this guy is the best back you got on this roster with all the injuries that you have on this football team. I take Alex Collins over Terrence West, over Buck Allen. To me, he's the best you got in the backfield. He did fumble in this game. Doesn't help his cause any, but still, I think he gives you the best opportunity to make a big play in the backfield. And you saw that today, almost broke it for a touchdown. Could have used that touchdown at that time, but in any event, this offense isn't anywhere near what this Ravens team needs it to be. And with the way they play defense, they don't need much from this offense, but they can't afford to turn it over, and they've got to be able to, at least, if nothing else, sustain drives, flip field position, and give the defense a rest. You can't go 3 and out. You can't turn it over. You can't put this team, this defensive unit that has been playing their asses off this entire season, you can't put them behind the 8 ball consistently like this Ravens offense. And to a certain degree, their special teams has done this season. They've got to be better offensively, and they're just not. Joe Flacco has been horrendous this season. You could blame it on the lack of preparation for him being injured and not playing in the preseason. You could blame it on the lack of targets out there, the lack of continuity with some of the targets that are out there. You could blame it on a number of things. You could blame it on the offensive line and not having all your guys out there. You could blame it on whatever you like. But Joe Flacco has been horrible this season, and that's my guy. I hate even talking about Joe Flacco in that light, but he's been horrible this year. And this offense only is going to go as far as Flacco is able to take them, or the run game, one or the other. They both can't be off, and that's what they've been for the majority of this season, except for week 1 when they put up 20. But again, 5 turnovers helped them put up those 20 points. The run game was dominant in that game. Outside of that, this Ravens rush offense hasn't really been much of anything, and Flacco has been just downright awful this season. And so they've struggled. And last week, 7 points. This week, 9 points. Not going to beat anybody scoring less than double digits. And hell, just getting to 10 or 13 usually isn't enough in this league either. Don't care how good your defense is. Usually that's not going to be enough to stand up and win in this league. And so this Ravens team, like I said, they're going to struggle. They started off 2-0 because they played inferior opponents. They're going to struggle this year because they can't score the football. You go to their defense, and I feel bad for the defense. I really do, because they're going out and they're giving this team a chance week in, week out. Sans for last week over in London, where they just got steamrolled defensively. This defense is giving this Baltimore Ravens team a chance every single week. And in the first 2 weeks, their dominance led the way to those victories. The last 2 weeks, it hasn't been enough. And it's not going to be enough, because you're not going to play the likes of the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns every week. You get those 2 teams twice more this season. That's a good thing. But you're not going to play those teams consistently week in and week out. You're going to play better teams every week that can score the football. And if you can't put up points on your own, if this defense can't create turnovers like they did in the first 2 weeks, you're going to struggle. And that's a tough ask of any defense. I don't care how good you are, to create turnovers consistently. If the Ravens didn't create the turnover today, and I didn't think it was a turnover, but if they didn't create that turnover, they wouldn't have scored any points most likely today. And that's been the story of this team. Without turnovers, without the aid of turnovers by this aggressive Ravens defense, there is no offense for this Ravens football team. And I still don't think they have a consistent pass rush. I still don't think they have a guy that can get to the quarterback. And so this team right now is in disarray because they don't have enough. They don't have enough. And it's really frustrating for this defense because, like I said, they give you a shot just about every week to at least compete and be in the ball game, and the offense and special teams aren't doing their part. And so another week goes by, and another Ravens loss, and another week where they don't score double-digit points as they lose this game 26-9 to their most hated rivals in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll take a couple of comments. I don't have a lot of time. Got to run, so I'll take a few comments, and we'll get out of here. RG3 hashtag says, it's time for the Ravens to give up on Flacco and draft the quarterback this draft that is coming up. I I don't know if it's time to give up on him, but it may be time to start looking towards the future. If he continues to play this way, I don't know if I can disagree with you. I don't know if you move on. You're paying Flacco too much money. And when was that deal signed? 2012? You went to the Super Bowl and won it in 2012. So that deal was signed in the offseason of 2013. So you're probably in year 4 of a 5 or 6 year deal. No way you just cut ties with him. But I think it is time to invest in a young guy to potentially take over that mantle. Flacco doesn't look like he's the man for the job anymore. But we'll see. There's a lot of season left to be played. You know how I am. I'm a big Joe Flacco supporter. And so we'll see if he can turn his season around. We know this is a week-to-week league. 1 week you can look like the worst team in the league. The next week you could look like one of the better squads in the league. Just ask the Carolina Panthers and what they were able to do today on the road at New England last week, looking like a really bad team with a ton of injuries that was going to struggle. They go out and they score 33 points and beat the Patriots on the road. This is a week-to-week league, so I'm not going to count him out just yet. He says Mayfield could be a perfect fit in Baltimore. I'm starting to really like Baker Mayfield. He's really growing on me. I thought he was just too small, just plays in that Oklahoma offense. There were so many strikes against him in my mind, but the more and more I watch him, the more and more he starts to grow on me. Cloud says Ravens look really bad on offense. You think? They've looked this bad for a while. This isn't a surprise. Cloud says some Raven fans are saying Flacco is done. I don't know about that, but what do you think? And I basically just answered that. I think you give him some more rope, but there's nowhere to go. It's not like you bench him in favor of Ryan Mallett. It's like there's nowhere to turn. So either he's good this year or he's not, but there's nowhere to go. You know, you don't bench him in favor of Ryan Mallett. Ryan Mallett stinks just as bad as Flacco is playing right now, if not worse. So really, it's a situation where you hope Flacco gets out of this funk. You hope that a lot of the struggles to start the season are based off of the lack of playing time for him in the offseason, and that he'll start to shake off the rust, which he's had a month now to do that. This is the 4th game of the season. He should have already done that by now, but his receivers don't help him much either. I'm not putting it on those guys, though. Flacco has been awful. He's been awful. Andrew Kim, who is a Ravens fan, says, I can't do this with Flacco, but everything on the offense has gone wrong, man. Flacco gets hit like every play. Collins is great, but fumbles too much, and they aren't using Allen. He pretty much summed it up. Flacco is not the sole blame of what's going on offensively, but he's a large part of it. But this is more of a systematic thing with them. There's a bigger problem in Baltimore. It's a lack of talent. There's guys not stepping up. There's injuries. There's a lot going on right now. Mondraw says, is Juju Smith-Schuster the best rookie wide receiver this year? No. I don't know who is. I'd have to sit down and think. This wasn't a great rookie class of receivers coming out, but I wouldn't say he is. I bet you if I sat down and actually thought about it, there's someone playing way better than him that's a rookie. There's got to be out there because he hasn't done much. He caught a shovel pass, a week ago, 2 weeks ago for a touchdown. I think it was last week versus Chicago. That was his first touchdown. You got the touchdown today, but other than that, he hasn't done much, so I wouldn't say that. Mondros also says, I don't know about Collins. He can turn into a fumble machine under pressure. Personally, I prefer Buck Allen. I'm not a Buck Allen fan, never was. I'm still not. Coming out of USC, he's an ordinary running back. You can get him. To me, he's a dime a dozen back. Collins is the guy that has potential to be a difference maker, but you're right. He does fumble the football. That was a problem at Arkansas. Probably one of the reasons he didn't last in Seattle. Now you find yourself here, and he fumbled today. So I get it. I understand. But in any event, we'll take a couple more. Andrew Kim says, play calling is terrible. Wide receivers aren't getting open, and Flacco doesn't get the time to throw to them. Not enough pass rush from the young guys. Just a hot mess. Yeah, pretty much that's the case. And I said that already, that they don't get enough pass rush. I talked about the offensive line not being up to par. The receivers are horrible. They've been horrible in Baltimore. They're always relying on some aging veteran to save them. Well, Jeremy Maclin hasn't done that thus far, unlike Steve Smith and Sr. and some of the other guys that they brought in at the end of their careers, Bolden and so forth, and Mason over the years. This team just, they don't draft receivers well. They haven't had success offensively with the talent or lack thereof that they have. And it's a mess. It is a mess offensively. That is for certain. But in any event, that's going to do it for your man Louie T here. I'll get out of here, glide to the side, allow you to start to watch your 4 o'clock games in peace. We'll come back at halftime of the Raiders and Broncos game, which is the game I'm watching. I can't speak for you in your local market. And we'll break down Cowboys and Rams. What a hell of a football game that was. Rams get the victory there, so a lot to talk about there, as this was another day full of upsets. maybe none bigger than this one. Maybe Carolina's win was a big upset there. But in any event, hell, Buffalo winning against an undefeated Falcons team. A ton of injuries for the Falcons in that game. We'll get to all of that and more as we continue through the rash of games on lockdown coverage here on the Louie T Network. I thank you guys for joining me. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. Ravens lose at home, dropped to 2-2 in the season at the hands of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who get it done 26-9 and run their record to 3-1 on the season. I will catch you guys later. Halftime of the 4 o'clock game. I'll be back here for Rams, Cowboys. See you then.